Okay, welcome back to Riven. Now, it's been quite a long time since we continued this last episode, months in fact, and I've had so many people ask me to finish, and so I'm going to work on completing this game now. And we don't have very much further to go, so first of all, we do need our notes and things, but we are basically right now in the linking book room. Catherine's linking book room. This is the animal puzzle which we have tried so long to solve. Here's the entrance into the room. Here we can see all the stone tablets laid out on the floor with the animals. Now if we go over to here, it won't even allow us to move forward right now, because there's no reason for us to go over there right now. It's just closed up. There's nothing for us to see, but we do have the clue, of course, which is the dagger, Catherine's dagger, which we've seen all around the island. However, I will need to, seeing as it's been quite a while, I need to consult my Riven book, which you can probably hear me opening right here next to me. And I need to check my notes to discover. Here we are. Okay, so basically by means of the puzzle balls and also from discovering the number system, we've been able to determine the order and all of the different animals we need to use, and we haven't known what that's for up to this point, but now we are in this room, we know which they are. So first of all, the number one is the one that we found in Gen's office. It's actually the fish, and that was, remember, the one that he kept taking from the lagoon. So we need to find the fish. It should be quite easy to find. It's that. Here we are. It looks like this one. Yes, that is the fish. So we now click on the fish. And then number two is the beetle. So we need to find this, the beetle. That looks like the beetle there. Is it beetle or scarab? I think it's probably this one. Yes, this is the beetle sign. And you remember the beetle we saw going into the forest made the sound as it flies away, rubbing its wings against the thorax. Next is the toad or frog, and we need to look around here for this one, as I don't see it. Is that the frog? Possibly. I'm going to double check because I'm not sure 100%. And that's a bat. I've never seen a bat in Riven. Let's just double check because I know what that is. I gotta tell you, it's not particularly. I'm playing on the original PlayStation game, and I gotta be telling you, the graphics not so easy. I think it's that one that I looked at before, because there's some sort of bird that looks like a moose or an elk. Looks like a crocodile, this one. Yeah, looks like a crocodile or something. That looks like a toucan. Doing pretty good at this. What the hell is that? What is that? I don't know. Let's go back out. I think it's that one that I originally looked at. Yeah, I think it's this one. I may be wrong though, but let's see. Okay, and then we've got the sunner creatures, that we see, and I remember seeing this one back here. These are the ones that as we go down the pathway, you see them sunning themselves. I believe it's these guys right here, this one. So even when you think you've got these puzzles, they're still not easy, because you have to try and sort of, you know, relate the images to these. And of course the last one being number 5, the walk, which is this guy. Of course that's the walk. Now let's hope I have got this correct. It would seem so. So we have unlocked the puzzle, and we have unlocked the sort of locking system for whatever we find here. Actually, let's just go back and we turn around. You can see now that all that liquid has drained through these pools and now surrounds the gateway on the way back out. Let's turn back around though. So this is quite exciting. This is one of the main puzzles in Riven, obviously the animal ball puzzle, and here we are. Now there's something to note here straight away. You'll notice that this book is burnt. Okay, unlike most linking books, which are not. You'll also notice there is this strange kind of metallic stone placed over the linking book, and we'll explain about this a little bit further once we see where we're going. We can see already there's a world here. We can see this is an active link, so let's travel through. And always, as with the Riven linking books and all linking books, it gives us a little pass through of the world we will be entering. So let's travel through. And here we are, finding ourselves in a new age. We can see creatures flying around this rather large, obviously inhabited, looks like a great tree. It's quite dark, mysterious. Let's look around. Water everywhere. So where do we go to? Ah! And we've been ambushed yet again. You might notice as well that that linking book was covered in Catherine's daggers, kind of symbolising that perhaps they really have a very strong significance for the people here. And as we know that they're Catherine's daggers, perhaps even there is some link there to Catherine. Perhaps they sort of, you know, have a particularly strong feeling towards her. And here we are, being taken captive to the tree dwelling place. We're obviously unconscious for some time, and when we come to, this is where we find ourselves. In apparently yet another prison. Seems to be a theme in your journeys through Riven, that you're constantly captured and imprisoned. There is our exit point. We're obviously now in the large tree habitat. We have a fairly simple facilities, a bowl, a shelf, and a bed. That's about it. So not much to speak of. Let's see if we can find a way out of here. And here, this is obviously the inside of the tree itself. Quite awesome. You have these kind of little pod-like houses within the actual main tree structure. You see the people pacing around. Perhaps they're very frustrated that Catherine has been kidnapped, trying to figure out how to get hold of her again. Perhaps they think that they can use us in some way. But also perhaps they feel that, perhaps they don't know who we are. They think that we have come from Gen, maybe. And for that reason they don't trust us. I think I'll take a leaf from that person's book and pace and pace. Oh. Catherine. So this is from Catherine. So this is something obviously of Catherine's. Possibly her journal. We'll soon find out. And there's 2 books. Oh. She returns for us.
Sirapo. Ibuko mo buko wisipo. Na vene. Tapo mo revene beno.
Ah. She's providing us with a link.
Now, Katerine ne. Wisifa polo ya sepe yai.
And we get the kind of impression from this woman that she's obviously talking about Catherine. You really get the feeling that they want Catherine back and that they're sort of, imploring us to help them to bring her back to them. Okay, here's the linking book taking us back to Riven. We don't want to use this immediately though. Let's take a little look at the books that we were given. So we have H's journal, we have Catherine's journal. We also see that we now have the prison book back again. So as I say, she brought a couple of books there for us. One was Catherine's journal, one was the prison book. So we actually have both of the things we now need. But let's look at Catherine's journal, and the rest of this episode, guys, should probably be Catherine's journal, me reading through that, but I'd probably timestamp through to a further point if you want to skip over this. But for the next part, that will be me reading Catherine's journal through. Okay, and here we are with Catherine's journal. Interesting cover and layout to this book. I linked to Riven a week ago. The smell of the place overwhelmed me moments before I could see anything. With my sight only partially cleared, I stood motionless, peering ahead through a dim veil, which was slowly lifting. There was a violent clang and bars appeared. I remember breathing slowly and very deeply, tasting the familiar Riven air, but not recognizing a thing. I must have been hit with the dart right away. I thought it was an insect bite at first. I'm trying to remember it all, but it's difficult. Maybe because of the drug. There was a voice. A man I did not recognize stood before me. Rivenese, though he was wearing dunny dress. He seemed to be talking to me, but the poison was already taking effect. A shadow crept in, and I fell asleep. Then there were the many voices, but I understood none of them. Like hundreds of people whispering, I couldn't wake up. No matter, the dream did end. And now to be here with Etty. It's been so many years, I didn't realise how much I missed her, like a piece of me that I'd forgotten, I'd lost. She's beautiful and so full of warmth. But the years have also left her with a wound which was not there when we were children. I do wish she were more interested, it seems, like I'm always asking the questions. It's awkward. No one asks me where I've been or what I've been doing. This hurts, but I understand it. Their beliefs are born out of ignorance and oppression. They are a gentle people, but they've had their nest destroyed, and now they frantically cling to anything that might save them. But why have they chosen to cling to me? I'm confused. As a child, I always felt out of place here. I never belonged. They misunderstood me, and I couldn't relate to them. But now, I'm overwhelmed by an intense feeling that I owe everything to them and this place. I thought I would never see them again, and yet, I'm here. I've been given this second chance, but a second chance at what? Saving them? Fulfilling their prophecies? Being their saviour? The moiety. Atris would want me to chronicle all that I've learned. I can at least record some of it. And the moiety is obviously the people who we are with right now, and this is the moiety age. It seems that when Atris and I trapped Gen on Riven many years ago, our efforts were witnessed by most of the inhabitants here. 2 of the Rivenese even witnessed the confrontation with Gen at the fissure, where I linked back to Mist, and where Atris threw himself into the abyss. Of course, they understood very little of what they were seeing, but they somehow were able to guess that we had won, and that Gen was no god at all, but only a feeble impostor, a false god, and that we had trapped him here on Riven. I always hoped they would deduce this simple truth, but their further conclusions have astonished me. Atris had stripped Gen of his power, therefore Atris must be a true god. And as a god, he was choosing me, the spiritual misfit from a Rivenese womb, to be his wife. I was transcending into deity and would lord over Riven forever. And this makes a lot of sense from what we've seen, that the moiety seem to worship Catherine. Hence, as I've been talking about the daggers, they're everywhere, these little symbols sort of referencing to her. It's also why that has become a kind of symbol of her. And thus the moiety, as they call themselves, were born, a dissident society, sworn enemies of Gen. I did not know of their beliefs regarding Atris and myself until 2 days ago. Etty was, for some reason, hesitant to tell me. I can't figure out why. I know she doesn't believe these things. Of course, everyone else assumed that I would be aware of my own god status, so they made no effort to inform me. I only realised it at a recent gathering to which I was invited. I sat at the front of a dimly lit and crowded cave, and as they told a mythical story of my own life, acting out the battle between Atris, myself, and Gen at the edge of the fissure. The events had been exaggerated into grandiose proportions. It was offensive, but I was unable to stop it. I was unable to break the illusion which is the very foundation of their hope and purpose, and which has given them courage to band together and rebel against Gen. Since then, I've learned of other doctrines and beliefs that have evolved, the most disturbing of which is the conviction that one day I would return to Riven to free them. Some believe that I'll overthrow Gen, others believe that I'll bring them to paradise. I don't know how to deal with this. I fight it myself. I love these people, my only real kindred, but they will not love me as an equal, which hurts me. I'd rather be their slave than their master. Over the years, as Gen's power has become greater and greater, the moiety's numbers have grown, and they have become more and more adept at hiding themselves. They now live in a complex network of caves that he still has not discovered. The moiety, for the most part, have completely severed their relationship with any of the Rivenese that chose against joining them, but I hope they've not sacrificed vital limbs in order to remove the cancer. Even Father and Aunt are still on the surface in Gen's domains, and I long to see them, but a stretched dimness shrouds Etty's face every time I've mentioned them. Since this break took place, they have interfered with the surface in superficial ways, occasionally sabotaging one of Gen's constructions or stealing food from the villagers. They wear strange masks and costumes during their short forays to the island's surface and take this regalia very seriously, refusing to be seen by anyone outside the moiety unless they are properly attired. They get much pleasure out of the fact that those on the surface are frightened by these costumes, calling them evil spirits or ghosts. It was during one of these expeditions that they fortuitously rescued me from one of Gen's guards when I first appeared on the island. Otherwise, I'm sure I would have been delivered to Gen immediately. I have no doubt that he's now searching for me. Of course, I am now aware that I was fooled. Atris is not here. I was at first devastated by this realization, and now I am thankful. He would be in extreme peril here. Also, there is a quiet inner voice, an echoing remnant that wants him far away. I have just witnessed an age dying, gasping its last breath. Today I ventured to the surface to see what had become of the island. I hoped it would not be as bad as the Moiety had reported, but it was worse. They had become slowly more accustomed to its steady decay, but I was devastated. The lips from which the kiss is wrought, as fallen words, will fall cold breath. The womb from which the cry released, has suffered hurt, will suffer death. To get to the surface, we had to travel through a complex series of doors and passages. Before the last of these doors, they offered me a weapon, which I accepted, and then a mask. I held the mask in my hands for a while, wondering what sort of terror it might invoke in those members of my family who still live on the surface. But I also knew I must keep my identity hidden from Gen's ever-vigilant eye. So I accepted. Then together, we swam a short expanse and emerged out of the surface of the ocean under a rocky overhang. The harsh sunlight made my eyes sting. Out of the fresh, rich air was exhilarating after these past weeks in the dank caves. The two men with me were silent, communicating only with hand signals, and the three of us emerged from our hiding place and made our way to the top of the plateau. At the edge of a thick and overgrown area of the forest, they stopped, peered through the foliage for a moment, and then turned to me as if awaiting my command. But I could not respond. In fact, I found it difficult to move. I was smelling, hearing, and breathing my youth. This swept over me in a matter of seconds, but in seconds more, all feeling was gone. There was numbness. We did not stay long on the surface, but it was long enough to see the worst. Riven, which was once one island, has split apart into 5 distinct pieces, about a half a mile apart. 4 of these have been claimed by Gen as his exclusive domain. Only his ministers and personal militia are ever allowed to access them. From my vantage point at the edge of the forest, I could see 3 of these islands. They are stripped of their former beauty and are riddled with Gen's self-absorbed constructions. The Moiety rarely visit these closely guarded places. There was another island which I could not see though, as it had evidently crept away to a terrific distance, and this is obviously the 5th island which we have seen but not been able to actually physically see. The Moiety are very unclear as to what exists on this island, except for the fact that they know it is where Gen, the Great Tree, used to exist. The forest is located on the island that the surface dwellers in the Moiety still refer to as Riven, but they also still refer to their entire world as Riven. This island is where the village is, which has changed dramatically, and you can see her illustrations of the islands now. It is also the one remaining province of the people, though Gen's influence can be seen everywhere. Of course, I know the reason for the fracturing of the island, the Moiety do not. Gen wrote this place, and it will die, as all of Gen's ages eventually die. And this is because, as we know, Gen is particularly bad at writing ages, and he doesn't understand the process, he doesn't even understand actually how it physically works. He thinks that what he writes is his literal creation, and he doesn't quite understand the actual process, which we'll get into. I feel nothing today. I am nothing. I live in a cave on a dying world inhabited by people that they're treating me so strangely. They don't know how to relate to a god. I'm still an outcast here. They whisper among themselves, talking of my bravery during my excursion to the surface, how I walked across the island bold and unafraid. They don't know me. Even Etty is uncomfortable around me. At times there is no awkwardness, and I am only Catherine to her. But at other times I'm something else. I'm afraid. There's such a gaunt numbness inside me. Today, I do not feel closeness with any people. Neither am I offended by their worship of me. I do not hate Gen. I don't feel anything. At least, Nella is still close. I am boiling. Gen is making and writing books. I wish they had told me sooner. Atris should have realised this would happen, of course. Gen would have written all of the materials necessary to the dunny craft of making books into this age, and probably every other age he ever wrote. He's attempting to write his way out of here. And remember, obviously, that Riven was initially meant to be a prison for Gen. We did not imprison him, we only delayed him. This age has become his factory, and the people are his machines, all labouring in his mad pursuit to become a god, to carry on his noble dunny cause. So far, he has not been able to produce a fully functional book. Atreus has never believed in destiny, but I don't know what else to call it. It's too perfect. It's too much of a coincidence. They hang on my every word, though I do not understand them. I am their hope, and now I have returned. I owe this to them. There is no choice. And we see this is the Starfisher device. It's been a long time since my last entry. It's hard to recognise, but I have found a Starfisher. It's located on an island which the Rivenese call Aleppo, meaning water pool, which is referred to by the moiety as Alatwan, meaning pool of stars. Having once allowed Atreus to escape this age without leaving an open door behind us, it has since been sealed with a skin of heavy iron. A crude telescope has been mounted over a locked viewport, the combination to which was acquired by the moiety before my arrival. In the early days, the moiety, seeking an escape from Riven, briefly pursued the idea of reopening the fissure. They discovered a small mechanical stop to prevent the scope from hitting the portal window. Ultimately, however, they decided against opening it. I hate to think what would happen to them if they had not left it alone. Now we just need to record this. This is actually a very important code, and much like the code to give us access to the domes for the book portals, this is a code randomly generated every time you play the game. So you can't use the same code if you were playing this game through. It will be different for you. And so I must add this to my Riven journal. Here we go, moiety age and Starfisher access code. And I will draw out these symbols for the sake of drawing them, but I will also look up the numbers in a mo, so two the same here. I should really know what these numbers are off by heart by now, but it's been a little while since we played. Actually, interestingly, 4 numbers the same. That's kind of curious. It's not usually very normal. Let me just find my number reference. Okay, so the diagonal arrow to the left is actually number 3, and the horizontal line is a 1. So it's 33133. Which is interesting actually, but yeah, there we go. So that's our Starfisher code. I've instructed them to stay away from it. I'm almost certain that with the decayed state of the islands, opening the fissure now would be disastrous. I've heard that in the days immediately following Gen's confinement on Riven, he attempted to determine the feasibility of navigating the stars beneath the fissure. For he had seen the mist book fall from Atreus' hands into that very same space. To this end, he would have people, alleged transgressors of the law, thrown into it so that he could observe their fate. And this again goes to show the kind of character of Gen. He really has no interest in other people, he has no respect for other people, he has no empathy for other people. He's only interested in Gen, he's only interested in his cause, his beliefs. The telescope which still stands there is one he had built for this callous experiment. It is said that they did not die, but what became of them remains a mystery. It appears that the limits of Gen's optics prevented him from learning their fate. The starfield beneath the fissure is not as it seems. It is a gentle space, as hospitable to life as a flowing river. This is how Atreus explained it after he had fallen into it, but much more than that we've never understood. And we're never able to conclude upon its origins, but the visions tell me that it was born out of the will of the Maker, perhaps for some greater purpose that we cannot yet understand. And I would perhaps theorise that the Starfisher is the kind of void between worlds, because we know that when you write a book, when you write an original book in terms of linking, when you write, what do I call it? Descriptive books. Descriptive books are different to linking books, and I'll get into this a little later, but a description book is basically like a foundation. You remember at the very beginning of the game we saw Atris with the large book of Riven. That's actually the descriptive Riven book, and it's different to a linking book because the descriptive book is actually the main book that originally allows you to see and go to an age. Linking books are kind of just they're links essentially afterwards, so they don't contain the same information. And a descriptive book describes a world in a parallel universe or another sort of plane of a universe, and so it seems to make some sort of sense that the Starfisher is this world between all of these worlds, and that's hence why Atris describes it as this kind of gentle space in between things. I still remember Atris's words from his journal. I realised the moment I fell into the fissure that the book would not be destroyed as I had planned. It continued falling into that starry expanse. There must be some greater reason behind it. I neglected to mention it earlier. The unique shape of one of the great daggers which appeared during our escape from Riven, the very dagger that stands vertically at one end of the Alatwan, has been adopted by the moiety as the symbol of their cause. It is a sacred symbol for them. It is the representation of all their doctrine, and their representation of me. To deface this symbol is sacrilege. They have their own mythical explanation regarding its sudden origins. I haven't told them that I wrote it into this age, along with all the other daggers. It's strange how such a young religion can be so unbending, even to their own god. I have tried to dissuade them of their notion that their symbols contain so much power. The enemy uses this paranoia against them, and they are fearful of Gen's symbol, and are terrorised by his symbolic use of the walk. But they don't want to hear this from me. Perhaps my attempts have even caused some of the young members of the moiety to doubt that I am Catherine. My rare encounters with those who say they follow Gen have been discouraging. I have hoped to have some communication with the surface villagers, but they always flee from me. But I have heard news of some of the villagers' beliefs regarding Gen. Soon after we trapped Gen on Riven, he claimed that he was responsible for the daggers, placing them around the island as a reminder of their failure. In the village circles it is told that this was a punitive act performed by Gen to mark the beginning of a period of restitution, at the end of which, if they have proven their devotion to him, they will be delivered unto a new and better existence. I will continue to try to reach them. The door is open. Gen is free. Gen has the ability to create working books. In fact, he had written one age before I arrived, but has kept this accomplishment so well hidden that only his closest ministers were aware until now. I'm not sure. Perhaps he's written others. Other news: a few years ago, before the moiety were forced into hiding, one of them managed to steal what appeared to be a test book that Gen had intended to destroy. It had been partially written, but did not work. They didn't tell me about it until now, because they thought it was useless. Back then, none of Gen's books worked, but instead of correcting the problem at its source, he blamed it on the impure wood of the Riven forest and proceeded to engineer a cumbersome mechanical remedy, a complex series of domes to heal his book's inherent flaws. One of the consequences of this crude solution, however, was that the domes demanded huge amounts of energy, and the related problems delayed his success for quite some time. At last, however, he finished his work and was able to finally link to an age, but he kept his success extremely well hidden. Again, remember, the key thing here is that he's linking to an age, so he hasn't written a descriptive book, he's just linking to an existing age. However, for some reason or another, belligerent pride, he had made modifications to the domes which made it obvious that he's using the domes to breathe life into his half-dead books. Perhaps he means to lure us into using the books in the domes. He can't believe that we would blindly swallow his suicidal bait, but he wouldn't know that we have one of his books, the stolen burnt book. I've read the burnt book, and the age it describes unsuitably as a new home for the moiety must be modified. I'll dream. I've requested a group to solve a combination that will open the domes. Once open, we can power the burnt book, and I do not think Gen will interfere. He will leave the bait. I've begun writing the moiety's age. Now we must acquire the second book from Gen. There is tension, a strain blurs my vision, and nightmares. Nina and Etty stay close. Much has happened. Almost everything is prepared. We have stolen another book, but I'm concerned. Gen will miss it. We have also discovered the combinations for entering the domes, but we have not discovered the method for powering them. By powering our book with Gen's domes, we'll be able to link to this age, but we'll only have access to the domes for a short period of time, before we're discovered. Therefore, we can only use the domes once. I must find another way to make the books work. The gateway images in Gen's book and our burnt book all seem to share the same sickness. If they're not powered, the images are black. It might be possible to clear the vision with only, and we'll write the substance into the moiety age. All is ready. Now all we can do is wait for word from the moitier-esque. I think she meant to say about that, we need a certain material, and therefore she's going to write that material into the moiety age so that when they travel to it, they can then use it to get back again, if you understand this. So she's basically going to write the material required into the moiety's age, so that then when they power the book using Gen's dome, they only have to use that once, and then the material will already be in the moiety age for her to create a way of linking back with the books themselves, which is now what we have seen already. We've seen that these little linking sort of power devices, which are those little kind of metal tablets which lay over the book, and you can see here her little diagram showing this. It lays over the book itself, and that enables them to power the books without requiring the ridiculous setup that Gen has with his huge domes and all this power and stuff. The solution is much more elegant and simple, except that Gen is stupid and he doesn't know this, but Catherine and Atreus are much more adept at doing these kind of things. Look out for Gen to power and use the domes. When he does that, we'll have access to one of Gen's domes just long enough. After linking to the age which I've written, I have only to locate the book window substance and refine or adapt it. Laying this window over the gateway image should heal the books and make them work. This will allow me to use the second stolen book and return to Riven with more of the book windows. We will then no longer have to rely on Gen's clumsy domes. I laugh at these plans. I sound like Atreus. I'm risking my life, but I feel no fear, only anxiety. Perhaps it is a source of my nightmares, the fissure. Like a great wound it is opened. It stains the riven soil with blood. I hold the moiety knife, and the voices grow so loud. For their part, the moiety have complete faith that I will accomplish my task and lead them to a better world. It is also the fulfillment of their prophecy, but they are also fearful and tense. I don't know what they will think or do if I fail. It is done. It seems too good to be true. I feel like it's all still a dream. We have already evacuated all of the moiety to this new age, which is the age we're in right now. It is beautiful and I am pleased at last. My people will live in safety and comfort. They stand under the bare sky, unafraid and dazzled by their freedom. They are happy. They have named it Tay, and that's the age we're in. It's the moiety age Tay. There's still much to be done. We're not protected yet. The only way to completely safeguard this place is to destroy the book which links to here from Riven. But I do not even know how to bring this up to the moiety. They will be extremely reluctant about destroying their only link to Riven. I share this hesitation. I would be cutting off my only connection, but for their sake it must be done. I am anxious to know if our activities have aroused Gen's suspicions. If so, we must act quickly. Even so, I feel that now we are impregnable. Tomorrow I will return to Riven to see Gen's reaction for myself, but tonight I finally rest. But of course that's the end of her journal, and returning to Riven to see Gen's reaction obviously ended up with her being taken. Hence why the moiety people are so anxious to get her back, and hence why we found out that Catherine has been kidnapped. Now before we travel back to Riven, I just wanted to quickly go over the whole deal with the descriptive books and so on. Now, with all this talk of books, you may remember that when we first saw Atreus at the beginning of the game, he had a massive book, as I said, taking up the table for Riven. All the books we use to link to so far are very small, and what is this about? Well, a linking book simply links back to an existing age. It doesn't describe anything about it. To write a linking book to an age, you have to physically be in the age you wish to link to. So you couldn't just write a linking book to an age you're not present in. If this were possible, it would obviously have provided, again, a means of escape long ago. Descriptive books are the foundations and can link to places you have not visited before. In theory, you could write 2 descriptive books to link to the same age, but due to the sort of vastly complicated nature and level of detail that you would put into descriptive books, just think of the size and scale we saw of Riven's, Atreus's Riven book. We'd speculate the destructive consequences for the age itself of 2 overlapping books would be unimaginable, because you just have a vast level of complexity, and any of these details overlapping is going to cause instability in that age. So an age can only have one foundation descriptive book, which makes perfect sense, but then as many linking books as you want to, because again, they don't have any real impact linking books. They literally just tell you that you're travelling from one place to another. The descriptive book can be used to edit and modify the age to an extent, but there are rules about how an age can be edited. If you adapt the description book too heavily, you could end up linking to an entirely different age, and you could even lose the link to the original age forever, as well as the descriptive master book being damaged or destroyed. The linking books to that age would then stop working. And it's worth remembering that the descriptive books are not used to write worlds, and this is the key thing. This is where Atreus and Gen differ on their viewpoint. Gen, mistakenly, he imagines himself as a god capable of creating entire worlds just at his pen stroke, but he fails to grasp what the books are, and hence ends up ruining ages constantly, and that's what we see with Riven, the islands breaking apart. Atreus understands that descriptive books link you to an alternate reality or universe, and that most closely resembles the age that is written. But the age linked to will be unstable if it contains significant contradictions, and if too many are present as they are with Gen's work, then the age can ultimately destroy itself. And that's why in the beginning we see Atreus speaking about repairing the book. He's working furiously to try and repair the damage that's been done by Gen. That's why Atreus he's been writing for days and nights, because he's trying to prevent Riven from destroying itself. He's trying to prevent it because obviously he doesn't want Catherine to die, he doesn't want Riven to be destroyed, and so he's working furiously to repair the damage that he did there. So it's very, very interesting the way these things work out. Although the only thing that is kind of interesting as well is we hear that Gen has created a book to a new world. Catherine states this. He has actually managed to write a book to a new world rather than just the linking books, which is what we've seen till this point in time. We've seen that he's had many attempts at trying to create books unsuccessfully, but all of these were quite small. They weren't really large descriptive books, so it'd be interesting if we do manage to find a book where these descriptive books are, but obviously it's something we haven't seen to this point. Anyway, let's return to Riven. Okay, so now we find ourselves back in the linking book room. The gate portal has sealed automatically, so this is returned behind us now, which is good. That's what obviously we'd expect it to do. And we're going to make our way back out through the world of Riven. We're going to be travelling now to Gen's age as well. But before we finish up today's episode, because I'm just going to finish here before we move on out, I'm just going to recap a little bit of the things that we know, some of the things that we found out as well. So we learned that Catherine came to Riven to search for Atreus. And the more we learn about Atreus and Gen and their whole family, the more bizarre they seem. It's also curious that Catherine would choose to come to Riven without a linking book of her own. Even if she assumed that Atreus would be here and have one himself, it's a pretty big risk to take to travel to a world without a sort of a linking book to escape from. So it's a curious choice that she made there. Perhaps it just shows that, her utter desperation to find Atreus. And we learned that the moiety saved Catherine. She learns their own version of how they perceive the events involving Gen, Atreus and Catherine back at the starfish at the beginning of the mist there. The whole section is pretty interesting, and it's an interesting commentary on how cultures can adopt events into their myths or religions by their own perception. We also learned how Catherine saved the moiety by using Gen's stolen book to write the Tay Age, which is where we were previously before we linked back here. We know that Gen is clumsy and bad at writing his ages, and Catherine already comes up with a better, more elegant solution to the problem of the gateway images that don't work on the books by just using a small window to place over them. She wrote the materials she needed to into the Tay Age, so it was not, as Gen believed, that dunny technology she brought with her. This is a good example of Gen's sort of lack of vision or initiative. He just doesn't see things the same way as Atreus and Catherine. He's just not very good at what he does. So I think that's a pretty good sort of summation of where we are. It's obviously, Catherine has now been kidnapped. She was so close to finding out sort of what Gen was up to, what was going on with him there, and she felt that she was sort of making some strong progress, and it seems that somehow she's, befallen an unfortunate fate at the hands of Gen. But now we have these codes, and it's going to give us the ability to sort of move through and go to Gen's age as well. We have the actual unlocking codes. So let's head back, and we're going to travel through now to Gen's age. I'll see you next time, guys, for the next episode of Riven.